2023 was a roller coaster year for movies. From such a strong start at the beginning of the year, to the fall of superhero comic book movies, to the ginormous and legendary summer blockbuster season, to the historic Hollywood strikes for both the writers and actors. This year has seen some incredible highs and also some unexpected but interesting lows. And so I'm excited to talk about 2023, recap the year, and share with you my top 10 movies of the year. And of course, share your own top 10 movies of 2023 in the comments below. I'm very excited to look at your lists and compare what made it and what didn't make it. Hi, I'm Imran and you're watching Imran Plus. Before we get into the top 10, make sure you click that subscribe button so you can help this channel grow and so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Number 10 is a tie between Megan and Air. Two very different movies, but two movies that I feel are worthy of being included in my top 10 list. Megan was such a fun surprise and such a great start to 2023. I love this movie. It's hilarious, it's fun, yet it also has some dark and interesting undertones to it. There's a lot of commentary about how to raise a child, what technology does to us as parents and as a society, and how that factors into both child rearing and also overdependence and overuse of it. From a filmmaking perspective, Megan is very well made. It's sleek, it's concise, but it gets everything right that it needs to. Megan herself as a character is fully realized and brought to life in such a captivating and compelling way, and I'm excited to see what they do with this character moving forward. This is definitely the start of a franchise, and I expect Megan to be a horror pop culture phenomenon for many years to come. Also, number 10 is Air. Now, if you're a fan of sports movies at all, you should check this movie out. It's phenomenal. It's incredibly well written, well acted, well edited, well filmed, all of the above. Unfortunately, it's not getting a lot of praise award season wise, but this is a movie you should definitely check out. It will be worth the watch. I never was bored throughout this movie, even though it talks a lot about business. I found the true story of how Nike signed Michael Jordan to be the first person to basically design their own shoe, the first basketball player to take ownership of and design their own shoe. And I found Viola Davis's role as Michael Jordan's mother very, very captivating and powerful. She plays the role with such love and care that you are rooting for both Nike and for Michael Jordan, which is impressive because usually these stories are talking about one party being exploited by a big corporation, but that's not really the case here. Michael Jordan and his family, particularly his mother, have their own say. They are a party and a partner with Nike in the creation of Air Jordan. This is a great movie, and so is Megan, and I recommend you check out both of them. They're both available on streaming services, as are all of these movies eventually. Number 9 is Godzilla Minus One. I know a lot of you might be surprised that this isn't the number 1 movie of the year, as my brother feels that it is. However, I do recognize and respect the artistic flourishes behind this movie, as well as how incredibly well made it is from a filmmaking standpoint. The reason it's not higher up on my list is that I just couldn't really connect emotionally with the characters as much as I wanted to. I got everything, I understood the emotional beats, and I liked all of it. I liked the script, I liked how everything was put together, the symbolism, the commentary, very strong in this movie, and Godzilla itself as a character is so cool, so powerful, and so moving. That was surprising to me. Very moving, and what the movie's trying to say about war, which Godzilla has always been an allegory for, is very strong. I still think it's a great movie, and I agree with everyone's praise of it. I don't really have any complaints. There's not anything that I would change with this movie. It's just a little bit lower down on my list personally, but I recommend this regardless. Check it out. It's very, very, very good, and it puts the Hollywood versions of Godzilla to shame. Number 8 is Pixar's Elemental. Yes, this is the little Pixar movie that could. Not a strong start when it first debuted at the box office, but with a strong word of mouth and a good hold, it eventually did pretty well. And I think that this movie deserves a watch. I think it's perfect on Disney Plus, even though I saw it in theaters and I enjoyed it in theaters. Elemental, I think, is Pixar. It's maybe not Pixar at its best, but it's definitely a solid entry. Elemental is such a creative story and such a relatable story, especially for people who are immigrants or people who come from immigrants, which technically is everybody in the United States. And so I think the art and the animation of the movie is also incredible. The voice acting also is very, very strong and really pulls you into these characters that are literal elements, fire and water. And I never really thought that I could feel so much for these two, but Elemental made me. And on top of that, this movie is a great date movie. And so if you're looking for a nice, sweet rom-com, Elemental is the movie you need to watch. It's surprisingly heartfelt, surprisingly funny, and it has some touching moments, all in front of the beautiful backdrop of the animation and art style. One of my favorite things about Elemental also is its score. It's just so fun, it's so cool, it's unlike anything I've heard before, but it sounds so much like things I've heard before. It's a cool fusion soundtrack which represents the fusion of different cultures that the movie's trying to convey. If you like Pixar, you'll love it. Number 7, Creed 3. I'm a big fan of the Creed franchise. I also love the Rocky movies, but for some reason I was so hesitant to watch Creed 3. I actually watched it pretty late in the year, many weeks after the movie came out in theaters and went to streaming. I just couldn't get into the movie, even though the trailers look solid. I just was on such a high from Creed 2. I didn't think that this movie could come anywhere close to the second one. But I was surprised, pleasantly so, that this movie holds its own. It is a very worthy entry in the Creed trilogy. I'm very impressed that Michael B. Jordan came up with this story. This is his directorial debut, and he does a great job. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does next, because he has a good eye. He put some really interesting things in this movie that I think help elevate it and keep it in the conversation amongst all 3 Creed movies. So if you're a fan of Creed, any of the previous Creed movies, or if you're a fan of Rocky, definitely check this movie out. Number 6 is Barbie. Yes, of course, this is one half of Barbenheimer. It's no surprise that Barbie is in my top 10. This movie is so well made. Greta Gerwig knocked it out of the park. This movie made $1 billion and is also nominated for many awards, which is impressive. Not only is Margot Robbie's Barbie a really great introduction to feminism and, bringing the struggle of womanhood to the big screen in such an authentic and real way, along with America Ferrera's character, but Ryan Gosling's Ken is also such a compelling character, so heartfelt and so moving and so funny. Ken steals the show at many parts of the movie without overshadowing Barbie. I think this movie struck the perfect balance between telling both Barbie's story and Ken's story, and that's very important because in the real world, both men and women are affected by the patriarchy, and I think that this movie really conveys that in such a digestible and relatable way. This movie doesn't feel offensive at all. It doesn't feel preachy. It feels like it's talking about a universal truth that most people can relate to on some sort of level. And if you didn't know or you couldn't relate, this movie educates you and brings you into the conversation. On top of all of this smart commentary and writing, we have the gorgeous production design of the Barbies and Barbie Land, as well as the real world. America Ferrera's human character brings the audience into this magical world that many people know from their childhood. And the fact that these dolls were brought to life in such a cool way, you really felt like they were dolls, is a testament to both Greta Gerwig and the entire production team on this movie. You've probably already seen Barbie, so you already know how you feel about it, but if you haven't already, definitely check this one out. Number 5 is Dungeons and Dragons. What a surprise that this movie is in my top 10, but I just love it so much. I've seen this movie a few times now already, and I love it. I can rewatch it over and over again. As someone who's never played Dungeons and Dragons, this movie gave me such a great introduction to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. This isn't like Jumanji, which is what I was expecting, in that there were characters who were playing a game that got sucked into the game, and that's what we were going to watch as a movie. This is the story of the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And so when you play the game and you play certain characters and encounter certain beings, those are the characters in this movie, which I thought was really, really cool. And I was very fascinated to learn about how many elements of the game the writers put into this movie. So if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, you will pick up on a lot of things that non-fans might have missed. So this is a great movie for both fans of the game and people who've never even played the game. For fantasy lovers, this is the movie you should check out. If you're interested at all in fantasy, adventure movies, you're gonna have a really great time. This movie is also surprisingly hilarious. I laughed out loud at so many parts, and every time I rewatch it, I still think the scenes are funny, so they never get old. On top of all of this, the visual effects team did a great job bringing all of this to life. I was so impressed with the CGI, the visuals, and the use of everyone's powers. This is what comic book movies and sci-fi movies should learn from. Every character is using their powers as if it's a part of them. No one is limited by budget or plot. I really, really love that because you get to see how these characters use their powers to navigate this world where these powers are normal. So these abilities and the magic should be a normal part of the movie, and it is. So I was very glad to see that element. The entire cast is very funny. Everyone does a great job, but Chris Pine holds this movie together. If you haven't seen Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, please check it out. You will not be disappointed. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Wow, what a movie. What an emotional movie. I didn't think Marvel movies could get me this emotional, but James Gunn has done it yet again with his Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. This movie has always had both heart and humor, and this movie is no exception, although things get very real and very dark in this movie. It's the conclusion of the trilogy, and so of course we say goodbye to some characters, but this movie does what I didn't think it would do. And I won't spoil it here, but I was very satisfied with everyone's ending. I really felt like this was a conclusion to these characters that we've grown to love so much. Rocket Raccoon has a prominent role. He is the main character of this movie, and his story is just so devastating. If you're an animal lover, bring tissues to this movie. You will be sobbing. If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 due to superhero fatigue or Marvel fatigue, go ahead and check this one out. I promise you this is safe from any of the complaints that you might have heard or you might be feeling. This is a really good entry and you're gonna be very satisfied, but you're also gonna probably cry, so be prepared. Number 3, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. If you saw my post-theater reaction mini review of this movie, you knew that I loved this movie, and at the time I said that it was the movie of the year, and it still is. To some degree. It's in my top 3. Man, I was on the edge of my seat throughout this movie. This movie is a worthy entry in the franchise, and Tom Cruise manages to outdo himself yet again. I'm surprised that he continues to up the ante and continues to come up with such crazy stunt ideas, both him and Christopher McQuarrie. I'm so impressed. But this movie also had me so stressed out because we just keep moving and moving from action sequence to action sequence. New addition Haley Atwell holds her own in this incredible cast of characters. I am so glad to see many of them return. There's one thing that I didn't like that this movie did, so I won't spoil that, but if you know, you know. At the box office, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 didn't do as well as it should have, so I'm really curious to see what they do with Part 2. They've already removed the Part 2 from the title, and I think they will retitle it. But I really want to continue the story. It is very much a Part 1, although I did feel satisfied with the ending. I felt like we finished this chapter. I didn't feel like we were on a cliffhanger. And so I liked it. I liked it a lot. Number 2, Oppenheimer, the second half of Barbenheimer. Christopher Nolan, you really did it. This movie might just win him the Oscar. And deservedly so. It's a feat of cinema. That's what this movie is. Oppenheimer is a feat of cinema. Cillian Murphy, incredible. He deserves to be nominated and potentially even win Best Actor. The sound design, the cinematography, the score, the editing, the visual effects, all of it is just so, it's at the top of its game. Everyone here is at the top of their game. I watched this movie in the biggest screen I could find and I don't regret it. If you have not seen Oppenheimer, you have to watch it for its accomplishments in cinema alone. The atomic bomb changed the world forever and had serious consequences. And so watching this movie, you can feel the tension about what's going to happen as a result of what these scientists are doing. And you can't do anything about it. Christopher Nolan puts you as an audience member in such an interesting position because you just feel the dread and horror of what you see unfolding before you without having any tools to change that. And I think it's really interesting that that movie came out this year, in the year that we are seeing one of the worst human atrocities in recent memory, recent history. But this time we can do something about it. And so if you've seen Oppenheimer and you felt a certain way, channel those feelings into taking action doing something about the situation in Gaza, speaking up, using your voice. We have a choice and we can do something before it's too late, because living with the guilt isn't going to change the course of history. And so let's act before it's too late. And now, number one, my favorite movie of 2023 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I love this movie, and even though it is such a cliffhanger and I was so mad when the movie ended, even though I knew it was about to end, I just couldn't help putting this as the number one movie of the year because it just is that good. The animators, the filmmakers really outdid themselves. I really thought that Into the Spider-Verse was one of the best animated movies ever made. But Across the Spider-Verse tops that. I still think Into the Spider-Verse is still one of my favorite movies ever, but this movie is such a worthy sequel, and I'm excited to see what they do in the third movie. Miles' journey and his growth in this movie is so incredible to watch. The score is phenomenal. I love this score so much. This and the Oppenheimer score are my favorite of the year, and Elemental. Those three I think are my favorites. The animation, what can you even say? What can you even say? I thought I had praised Into the Spider-Verse and there was nothing more I could say about the animation. They do so much more in this movie that I'm at a loss of words. This should go in museums and should be shown in film school. I'm just so impressed and amazed. This is another movie where I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. My heart was beating so fast. I was so stressed out. An incredible movie-going experience. So if you haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse, please check it out. You will have such a great time, especially if you are a fan of the first one. And so those are my top 10 movies of 2023. I picked movies that I was really moved by when I watched them the first time, and movies that I have watched again since I watched it for the first time and enjoyed the same amount, if not more. So all of these movies I've seen, most of these movies I've seen a couple times or more, and I like them every time, and so that's why they're on my top 10 list. That's how I made my choices, and that was my criteria. I'm curious to know what you put on your list, how you chose your list. Share it in the comments below. What do you think of my list? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And with that, the 2023 movie season comes to an end, and I'm looking forward to 2024. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great time. Lots more videos coming this year. I'm excited to talk about award season as well once we get our Oscar nominations. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. Share this video with your friends and fellow movie enthusiasts, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.